I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. And I will ask our secretary, Lisa, to call the roll.
All right. Joe.
Here.
John.
Here.
Greg.
Here.
Angela.
Here.
Alex.
Here.
Justin.
Here.
Jen.
Here.
I am here. Jane.
Here.
Julie.
Here.
Peter.
Here.
And Mary.
Here.
All right. We'll move on to item B on the agenda, which is there any public comment on agenda items? If you do have, if a member of the public would like to make a comment, please use the raised hand feature so I can spot you. I don't see anyone. It's going once, going twice. I see no public comment, so we will move on. On the consent agenda are the minutes of our meeting of February 7th, 2022. Would anyone besides me like to take these off the consent agenda? Okay, well, I'm going to ask that we take them off the consent agenda. On the in the area of committee reports, these are excellent minutes, by the way. These are really fantastic minutes. I really like them. But on the committee reports, I must have really been out to lunch, because on there it says that we've had 3 of our 4 unions. We've completed negotiations, and we will be speaking with the teachers in the fall. In actuality, I misspoke. We will be meeting and negotiating with the teachers in the fall. And so I'd like to change it to say that. Also, yeah, go ahead.
Can I stop you a second? Ben Allen, can you, as far as hitting record, I don't see Danielle present at this meeting, who is our recording secretary. So I just, here she just came in. So, okay, I feel better now. Thank you. We already have the minute. We have it recorded as far as the minutes that we've had thus far. So I just want to make sure everything was good.
Okay, Danielle, I just wanted to call your attention to the fact that I misspoke in the committee reports of our last meeting of the minutes for the last meeting, or the meeting of February 7th, in that I did not mean to say we would be speaking with the teachers in the fall. I meant to say we would be meeting with and negotiating with the teachers in the fall. So clearly I was misspoken on that. So if you can correct those, I would appreciate it. Do we have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented with that change?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, I don't know what that vote was, but I think it was maybe 11-0 to not sure. Angela, we didn't see a vote from you. Did you have a particular vote on that? I think you're muted. Now, Angela, you're still muted. Oh boy.
I'm sorry, I lost my screen for a minute there.
Oh, all right.
No, I vote in favor.
Okay, good. I think that means it's unanimous. Okay, very good. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the updates on COVID-19 recommendations of masking. Megan.
All right. It has been a eventful week, as we all know. There's been constant changes. So at this point, I want to update you on where we are as a district, give you the most recent numbers. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to share my screen. All right. So as we do every board meeting, these are the updated facts and figures that we're looking at from Region 12. So our latest information from our last board meeting until today, we had 7 total cases. One of those was district personnel. We had 1 teacher and the others were students. Of all of those positive cases, we only had 2 primary contacts within the school. We do continue to monitor that. So even though we're not reporting people who may be put into quarantine any longer, we're not tracking that on our website. We're tracking that within our information. And so these numbers are up to date and will continue to be up to date for the board. So we are, as of tomorrow, shifting to recommending but not requiring masks. We are a day behind other districts, and we really wanted to make certain that we made a psychologically safe environment for our students as we make this shift. Please note that we are not saying the words unmasking, because we do continue to recommend that masks are worn, but at this point we are not requiring that. And you'll see in my update, and I did not want to make this change, but masks still being required on buses. When I put this slide together, we have to do those by Friday. We still were working with federal mandates, CDC recommendations, and on Friday evening, that recommendation had changed. Other districts had made the change over the weekend. I want to give a little bit of time before we change everything at once. I think the evolution is very important. We want to make certain that students are feeling safe in each environment rather than just a quick changeover. But we are requiring masking in nurses' offices. Right now, masks are required in medical facility, and our nurses' offices are medical facilities. And the other part of the requirement is we do require masking for those returning to the second half of their quarantine period. So if it is the decision to return between days 6 and 10 from a COVID infection, you must be masked in order to return to school. It is important for us and important for everyone to recognize that masking is not a binary decision. It does not have to be an all or nothing moment. We have talked to our staff to make certain that they are fluid regarding students who may come up to them, and that if a student is masked coming up to them, that they should be met with a mask, and that it's important that people evaluate their own personal risk in the environment and in the circumstances. So as we shift over to personal responsibility, it's important to know that this isn't about burning masks, but recognizing the risks that are involved. And right now, the only district in Connecticut that is still in the orange is Middlesex County. We fall into the green category according to our DPH. So some mitigation updates that we have as people start making their personal choice for safety. We will have enhanced masks available. So we do have the N95 masks that are available for staff and students at Chippewa. If someone would like to have the enhanced mask as we introduce personal choice. I want to thank Greg Cava, who gave me some really good leads as for KN95 and NF94 masks, and we were able to purchase those and make those available to our elementary students. We do have surgical masks that will be available on buses, but we do ask that people continue to bring their own masks to school, even if they're not in use. We did provide open test kit pickup windows. We had it this afternoon from 1 to 4 o'clock at each of our school sites, and also this evening at central office. I can tell you we had somebody who did stop by central office in order to pick up that test kits. Because of the fact we want to make these test kits available to people who are looking to have more information on their personal health, we invite people to work with their nurse's office in order to get a test kit. So that way, as we continue to watch and monitor for this new change, we're also watching and monitoring for health. Typically, we've only made test kits available to those who were showing signs and symptoms, or if they had had exposures. These test kits are available to any and all students, and we do distribute them 2 at a time. We are going to be shifting to notification of infection through email for the first few weeks as masks become recommended. I don't want to hide anything, and we've constantly throughout this entire pandemic given parents the most real-time information that we have. And whereas we continue to update the information on a website, I do think that being more overt in our communication so families can make certain that they're adjusting their masking choice based on the conditions that they have in front of them. Other things that we have been doing within the school these past 2 weeks as we prepare for this transition is that we have been having our psychologists work with our nursing supervisors. There's a PowerPoint that was specifically given to elementary students because we wanted to make certain there was no bias in how information was being presented to the students, to recognize that there are going to be differences. We know that people may be around them that are unmasked, and that may be the first time our kindergartners, first graders have ever seen their friends' faces inside of a classroom. So we wanted to make certain they were prepared, that this was done in a way that let them know that there are choices that happen and people have different family circumstances. And this is not about vaccination or not vaccination. This is really making certain that our students are aware that there are choices that are out there and that we really want them to know what their family choice is, and we will support them in that. Up at Chippewa, our administrative team had a conversation with the students this morning to talk about the expectation and again, promoting that tolerance. This isn't about shaming anybody into any decision. It's about respect and acceptance for the decision that is made regarding the masks. But again, we continue to recommend the mask, but it is a personal choice and people having the freedom of what they want to do in order to keep themselves safe, recognizing their own risk factors. We did put in some environmental supports as we start to play with this new variable regarding the recommendation for masking. Additional space has been put in between desks within all of the classrooms. We have windows that are open for additional ventilation, so students should dress warmly. We do want to make certain that fresh air is king. And as we start to do this, we're changing our language from saying mask breaks to fresh air breaks. I think we can't underplay the social part that is happening in all of this. And as we transition, not everyone will need a mask break because not everyone's wearing masks, but I think that having those moments to stop, get fresh air is going to help the health of all of our students. So we do know that we maintain the 5-day isolation period for those who test positive for COVID. This continues to align with both CDC and our departments of health. We are recommending those who are returning from COVID infections at day 6 that they have to be masked within their infection window. And what is also important to know is we continue to contact trace, meaning that if your student has been exposed either with or without a mask, we want to make certain you know, and you can take those actions that continue to provide your personal safety as well as community safety. So that concludes my update. And at this point, I will open up the floor if there are any questions.
Megan, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
We talked about this a little bit earlier in the evening, and that is, I am confused. I do not understand the basis for the change in the transportation masks on transportation. I thought that was a federal rule, a federally mandated rule on all public transportation, and that included school buses. That rule was in effect until the 18th of March. And after that, it was going to expire, and the best guess of everyone that looked at it was that it was not going to be renewed. Are you telling me that the federal government has ended their mandate even sooner?
I'm telling you, it has been ended sooner regarding school bus transportation and transportation for schools.
All right. Do we have any 5 to 11-year-olds traveling on school buses in our region?
Yes.
Well, in view of today's article in the New York Times, that the manufacturers of the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, which is the vaccine that's been approved for children 5 to 11, is virtually worthless in terms of preventing infection. It does prevent serious injury, serious sickness and hospitalization, but it does not prevent against infection. It's almost nigh on worthless in children 5 to 11. And I think probably the reason for that, they speculated in this article, is that they're only giving them a third of the dose. So they may have to titrate that dose a little bit before that becomes an effective vaccine. But in light of that, I think it would be a manifestly bad idea to allow students to go unmasked on buses in our region until the foreseeable future, until that vaccine is, number one, deemed effective, the dose is deemed effective, and that students overwhelmingly have it. I think what you're doing is putting students at risk if you allow that. And I think that there are changes in the vaccine protocol that have left us in a position where they do not have immunity from the vaccine against disease. Now, it may be that they won't get really sick, but they might just spread it to a lot of people. And so I think you are risking a potential super spreader event called the Region 12 buses. And that's my take on that. And that article was in today's New York Times. It was posted about 9 hours ago, and it says Pfizer shot is far less effective in 5 to 11-year-olds than in older kids, new data shows. And that's an article in today's New York Times. 10:32 a.m. it was posted.
I will take a look at that, and thank you for providing a new resource.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Mary.
I am sorry I didn't hear this before, but today, one of the school districts, and I didn't catch which one it was, decided that they should test all of their students before having them come to school. And with testing that, 8 of them showed up as positive, asymptomatic and positive. So I wish I had seen that before. I would have suggested that to you. I thought that was something. The other thing is, what happens when a parent says to their student, I want you to stay masked. But of course, kids being kids, they don't feel like doing that. So they don't. What do we do in that case? And the other thing that I had a question about was the 6 to 10 days that they have to stay masked in school. Is who is going to police that? I know the teachers will know who they are, but what about like the librarian and the and other people in the school, the music teacher? That they're going to have a list of all the people that are that they have to police with this. That's kind of bothersome to me. But those are the 3 things that were on my mind.
No, you bring up a very good point, Mary. And if our numbers weren't manageable, right now, 7 over 3 weeks, I would say to you, we can't. And the moment our numbers start getting to the point that we aren't able to manage it, at that point, we would require masking when it's not a safe situation. I think you asked the question, what do we do when it's a family wish and the student is not compliant to what mom and dad want? I promise you, we see that in how sometimes they dress. But it is, I can say that I know our preschool teachers are taking their own efforts to talk to parents and saying, what are your choices? Trying to help in that way. But really, there's not a lot of consequences that we can put on. We can do those gentle reminders. But really, this is important that our families let their children know why masking is important for their family. What are their personal beliefs? I think because we told you so isn't going to work, because if they don't think they can get caught, you're right. They're going to try not to get caught. But it is something that to say there's not a lot of consequences we can do. We can certainly monitor days 6 through 10, and we do have the ability to communicate on days 6 through 10 who is supposed to be masked. They are not allowed to take instruments. They are not allowed to participate in PE. Those conditions for an early return remain in place.
But I just want to follow up on that, and then John is next. I don't understand why that isn't just the red letter argument for in requiring masking and not removing the mandate on masking, because the problem you're going to have is that kids are going to respond, and this was something I also read in 3 different newspapers, that kids are going to respond to peer pressure, and that the likelihood of anybody wearing a mask in a short period of time is that no one will be wearing masks. None of the children will be, no matter what their parents want them to do. Kids succumb to peer pressure against parental preferences. My guess is it probably happens about 1,000 times a day in a school with 1,001 kids. And so I think that, I think I hate to say it, but I think that if you have children whose parents say they want them masked and they're not masked, that should tell you got to mask everybody. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to go backwards on this. But the more I read and the more I see and the more I think we're headed, in a direction where we will have a lot of parents who are not happy with us that we're not helping their kids to follow their guidance. But the second problem I think we've got is I think you need an answer to this bus problem, because I just don't think you can get social distancing on a bus. And I think those kids are at risk, especially the younger ones.
And I can tell, and I'm going to read the article, so I don't want to overplay new learning. But I can tell you, and Nicole can share, our bus capacities and what we have done, we are running buses with a fraction of the students. We aren't running full buses right now, with the very reason that we've always maintained the social distance. And I think again, I'm not going to speak to something I haven't read, and so I will certainly look at that. But this is the moment in which what the board has allowed for us to do is, as we go into this, if we see at any point that health conditions deteriorate, we make different decisions. We did provide an opportunity for everyone to receive the tests, and I was ready to put them in everybody's backpack. And luckily I have a wonderful team of administrators who said, Megan, do you remember the Tide Pod challenge? Maybe we don't send home, chemicals with our children. So instead we've opened up distribution centers. We want people to test. I've put out the emails. We want people to do these things. We want people to have knowledge, so that way they are sending in healthy students. But, Greg, to what you shared tonight, I will certainly look into that more.
It's in your inbox. You have it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. John?
Yeah, I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Megan basically answered the question, but I was wondering about your reservations about the bus issue. Is it solely, distancing, or, I whenever I'm out, I look at the school buses, and I can tell you, and I look at the school buses that pass by my house on our street. That bus has 1 or 2 kids in it, and if the kids want to wear masks, they're absolutely, allowed to do so on the bus. They get off the bus in mass and take the mask off. So I just don't, or they get off the bus at home and they go to the supermarket and don't follow social distancing or wear a mask. So I don't know how much wearing a mask on a school bus is going to protect them. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. We'll move on. Megan, do you have anything else in that report?
I don't have anything else other than I can tell you, as a parent today who sent her child to Lewis Mills, and knowing her commitment to mask wearing and asking what did it look like, she said it was about 50-50. So I can tell you, she said she didn't feel pressured, but that said, it's one sample data point that I can say, but this is not an all or nothing, and we're gonna watch, and we're gonna be very careful as we go into this.
Anything else? All right. We'll move on. In view of the long agenda we have tonight, and the one we had last week, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking, but I think that we have reached a sort of uncertain point of uncertainty in this whole pandemic situation. I would like to see us get these masks off. I would like to see us move into a more normal situation. I just fear that we may be treading a little fast, especially with respect to the buses. I expected to have experience to optional masks in school before I had to deal with them on a bus. And I really am concerned about that. I think the federal government showed even less leadership than the state of Connecticut showed in taking that mask mandate off, when it appears it's entirely politics and not, and I agree, it's not, I think it's politics. I don't think it's science. I'm starting to have regrets about the direction we've gone in this thing, and I'm just letting you know that that's where I am. And I do expect to see us exercise a degree of caution that so far I'm not confident that we're going to exercise. And I think 50%, that's today, that's this week, that's the first day of the thing. My guess is 2 weeks into the mask options, you'd be lucky to have 5% of the kids wearing them. I think maybe 1% is more likely in number. I think maybe 1 or 2 kids that maybe know that they are immunocompromised may wear them, but I think beyond that, it's not going to happen. And I think we're kidding ourselves. If masks are necessary, by the time we get them back on, it'll be too late. And that's what I'm worried about. And I'm starting to get increasingly worried about it from what I've read about how children behave under circumstances like this. I think we're in a tough situation here, and I would urge more caution. All right, let me move on to the treasurer's report. John, do you have anything to say at this point? I know we're sort of between on the budget.
I have a couple of things. On February 14th, the fund managers from Wells Fargo Institutional Retirement Pension Plan Division presented a very detailed analysis of Region 12's non-certified employees retirement fund, which includes 37 union members at present and 16 non-union. There are 3 union members who have not reached their 2-year employment, so they're going to be coming on shortly. The managers gave specifics concerning the plan's performance, which included this past quarter as well as intervals from a 10-year history. The investments are diversified and deemed conservative as far as risk potential, which includes large cap Russell 1000, Vanguard 500, T. Rowe Price, mid cap S&P 400, and small cap JP Morgan Goldman Sachs. The report revealed that the plan is 112% funded, which is a very significant increase from last year's 94.5% funded. Long story short, the plan is in extremely good shape. I often compare it to my own pension plan, the Teamster pension plan, which is only 65% funded and is in critical and declining status. The federal government has tiers for pension plans, and yeah, this is very good news. And our investments are yielding good interest rates. Speaking about interest rates, Nicole and the F&O committee deliberated on moving our capital reserve account, that's the 2% fund, from Webster Bank to our local National Iron Bank in Washington Depot here. They have branches elsewhere. The fund has 1.2 million and is currently earning a mere 0.02%, 0.02% interest. Pennies, basically pennies, but at Webster. National Iron has a money market yielding 0.25%, which is far better than the 0.02%. The entire 1.2 million will be fully insured, and we may, when the CD rates come up, we may move the balance, some of the balance or all of the balance into CDs, or keep them divided into 2, the money market and CDs. I mean, but it is good news for both the 2% fund and the retirees. That's about it. Any questions?
Mary, did you have a question? I saw your hand.
Greg?
You just a second. I thought, Mary, did you have a question? Your hand was up first.
I'm
Oh.
trying, my question has to do with this uproar and this small uproar in the state about the getting the money for construction projects. Will that have any impact on us at all?
The only thing I hear is on the radio. I mean, Nicole probably hears more from DAS than I do. I don't think that the small bit of corruption is going to affect the payouts for for the final payment on our construction, but maybe Nicole has heard something. I'm not sure.
I haven't heard anything differently.
Okay, doc, that just crossed my mind. I figured I'd ask.
Okay, thank you. Alex?
Yeah, we at the FNO voted to recommend to the board the moving the money to the Iron Bank. Do we need a motion now?
We'll do it. You'll make your report and we'll do it if we can. We may have to put it on the agenda because I don't think it's on the agenda. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier in the week.
Greg, Nicole has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
So Iron Bank has a very specific resolution they need for that. So it would be better to wait until we could get their language into the motion.
Okay, so we'll take your report, Alex, but we'll hold off on action on that.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Superintendent's report.
Okay, well, as we start to adjust and have some events and things that are happening at the school, I want to applaud Rachel Murray for coordinating the viewing of The Sacred Cow on Saturday. She had producer James Connolly join the Chappaqua community for the screening of the film, as well as a discussion about sustainable livestock in the processes. So to know that our students are really having the opportunity to talk with people who are on the cutting edge of what's happening in agriculture. We have started our graduation planning. Right now, our seniors, we have allowed them to vote on how they want June 11th to look. I think I have learned my lesson after last year. We will make certain we know exactly what this class wants. And we're going to find a way to make certain that this celebration is not only feeling like it is unique to the class of 2022, but also in a way that everyone who would like to attend to celebrate their graduates can do that. We are now looking to add some of the school dances and some social events. We do have prom scheduled for May 28th, and this year we will be allowing outside guests to come to prom. Additionally, our seniors are coordinating an end of winter formal, which their thought is maybe that'll transition into homecoming in years to come, feeling that basketball may feel a little more homecoming-like to Chappaqua and just matching our culture with some of our traditions. And so just again, we want to make certain that we're balancing that mental and physical health as we continue to go through this pandemic. A special thank you to Kathy Coella and Representative Harrison and the staffs of Booth and Burnham, the towns of Roxbury and Bridgewater. Our students were able to create some beautiful Valentines for our seniors. And I think it continues to be important that we connect with our community at all levels. And a special thank you to, I know we have an anonymous donor who is sending our sixth graders to see Hamilton on Broadway. And I think this is an amazing opportunity for our students, and things are continuing to move forward. So for $25, like that's a substantial subsidized cost that our students are getting in order to see Hamilton on Broadway. And so that will be happening on April 27th. I want to just update you on a couple of sporting events and how we have been faring during these winter sports. Our Boys basketball finished the season on Saturday night. They lost to Northwestern in the Berkshire League tournament, but into the quarterfinals. Anybody who has not heard about Phil Ostrowski's buzzer beater against Nanawag, it was outstanding. I would have forwarded the video, but there were some really excited fans and I had to censor some of the things that came out of their mouths, but it was all of the excitement. It was at it was 0.5 seconds and it was outstanding. So that is going to be a memory for Phil for years to come. Luke Schneider has been recognized as one of 7 first-team Berkshire League All-Stars. And our Chippewa basketball team was awarded the Ted Alex Sportsmanship Award for the 3rd year in a row. So again, we care much more about the character than how they perform, and they continue to show their good character. Our girls basketball team traveled to Wilkett Tech in Torrington on March 1st. They will be playing for the first round CIAC tournament that day. They did have a 1-point upset victory over the 3rd-ranked Housatonic players in the Berkshire League quarterfinals before losing to a very competitive champions of the Nanawag. So Nanawag got back at us, I understand, but you know, it was all great games and well played. Congratulations to Marissa Parachi, who was recognized as one of 7 first-team Berkshire League All-Stars. She was voted number 2 player overall in the league. And in as much as we're celebrating her basketball, she just signed her commitment letter and she will be over in Rhode Island and she will be playing soccer. So incredibly well-rounded. And I believe in her article write-up, she said in the future, she'd like to be an athletic director. So I think a great headline would be Parachi to Parachi. So as far as our swim team finished the season 9-3. I want to congratulate our team who hosted a splish meet. So they took an opportunity because they didn't want to go to the large statewide splash tournament, and in which they had our female swimmers compete against our male swimmers, and just really making certain that they coordinated something that really established a sense of competition and did it in a way when they saw an opportunity lost, they created an opportunity. And so we have ice hockey, our Chippewa co-op team, pending the results of the game this week. We may be in the CIAC tournament the first time since 2015. So go Chippewa, we're excited about that. Our indoor track team had done a lot of traveling this year. They participated in the Hill House Invitationals, the Bob Salisbury Invitationals, and the Hill House Varsity Meet, and the Brookfield Last Chance Meet. So we're really seeing our indoor track team start to be involved in more competitions and driving it forward. Our cheerleaders, we have 12 cheerleaders, and we were able to return the hosting of the clinic for 12 elementary students who idolize our cheerleaders and had the opportunity to rock a cheer at one of the games. So it's always a crowd pleaser, and we are happy to have some of those traditions return. And we don't often talk about wrestling because we do have students who are competing as teams of 1 at Nanawag, but our wrestlers, Lane Faison, Brendan Kelly, and Kip Faison represented Chippewa when they competed as Nanawag. And all 3 wrestlers won their respective weight classes in the Berkshire Valley tournament. And all 3 competed in the CIAC Class S tournament, with Kit Faison moving to compete in the CIAC State Open. So again, their passion for their sport and what they've been able to achieve has been remarkable. And as we continue to watch our middle schools grow, our middle school swim team had 32 members this year. So we're hopeful for a growing season, because I know as we continue to want to utilize the pool, we were seeing that. And our girls basketball team had 15 members, 13 on our boys team, but our boys team was able to compete in all 14 games and went undefeated. So I'm thinking in another couple of years, we got some really great teams coming up through Chippewa at the high school level.
Jen? You have a question?
Well, I just wanted to say one thing. On the Saturday game, we were at Nanawag watching And of course, a shout out to Luke Schneider, who also scored 42 points in that game, which was pretty amazing. He was on fire. But what was really amazing was that they were in overtime, and Luke Schneider had fouled out. And when he went to go sit down on the bench in overtime, the Northwestern parents got up and gave him a standing ovation. And I just thought that that was a really class act all the way. And I just wanted to give a shout out for that.
Thank you. All right, I'm sorry, Megan, we interrupted you. Go
No,
ahead.
not at all. So if there aren't any other questions about the updates, I'll get into some of our personnel changes.
Okay,
We'd like to welcome Mike Epps, who is our new school resource officer. Mike is coming to us by way. He was a Waterbury detective, did a lot of work with their youth services. We are incredibly excited for his talents to come join us up at Chippewa. Fresh pair of eyes and making certain that we never take our attention away from keeping our students safe. I think his statement that really dazzled me the most during his interview is he said, "My job is to make certain that the only thing the students have to focus on is their academics." And I think what a fantastic way to come into Chippewa. We are saying goodbye to two staff members. Sarah Foreman, who has been an educational assistant at Washington Primary School, effective tomorrow. She's leaving us for an opportunity with the town of Roxbury. And I know this is one in which when he made his announcement, I received so many emails just praising the work that he's done. But in the middle of this month, we say goodbye to our director of school counseling, Mike Boucher. And for those who do not know Mike, he held a personal relationship with every student and staff member at Chippewa. He got to know them. He would talk to them. If you didn't go to a cross-country meet when he was cheering on our students and helping them run across the finish line, that was how he took on everything as a director of counseling. I will tell you, our Sherman population that we have right now at Chippewa, that is absolutely a credit to his energy and his recruitment and going in and really not just selling Chippewa, but believing in Chippewa. So we know that he is going to be an assistant principal at the middle school at New Milford. It is a wonderful opportunity for him, and New Milford has just gained a fabulous leader. And so I did tell New Milford this is a library loan, but we wish him well in his next steps. We do have some leaves of absences. David Morgan, who is out until April 8th, and Deb Wyke, who actually just returned to us this week. And that concludes my personnel update.
okay. All right, if there are no questions, we'll move on to committee reports. The first one is curriculum and educational programming. Justin, you had a meeting tonight, I think.
Yes, we had a meeting tonight, so hang on, I'm sorry if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. I'm trying to make sense of my notes here. The first thing we had Mr. Croft talk about the grading, the changes to the grading practices at Chippewa, moving, they started by looking at the gap between the grading practices and the best practice for learning, and really focusing on habits of mind separate from the skills and knowledge. So let's see what else. Another key idea was how students are working with the teachers, and they're sort of engaged in a conversation about their learning. The goal is to make the students aware of how they're learning. So there's that. Then we had Mr. Shells give us an update on the schedule changes. The guiding question there was, how do we give our students better learning opportunities? So there's not a finalized plan yet, but it will involve something involving longer class periods every other day, including flex time and a rotational schedule, so that the students that you see on first period, you may see seventh period the next day. So it's not the same period every day, which should get the best out of every student. Dr. DeBrito gave an update on the district's curriculum 5-year plan. And really the focus there was getting the whole district working together as much as possible to, let's see, what are we looking for? Continuously updating curriculum. And Superintendent Bennett also mentioned how this 5-year plan will sort of connect to the portrait of the graduate, which is another way of saying, what will a Chappaq diploma look like? And then finally, we had a brief discussion, or Superintendent Bennett gave a brief presentation on the educational technology choices in the district, going all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. And I believe that is it.
Thank you very much, Justin.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to Ed Advance. Joe, what's new there, if anything?
There has not been a meeting since our last board meeting. There is one scheduled for this Thursday. So technically I don't have anything new to share right now.
Well, we'll look forward to a report at the next meeting after your meeting on Thursday. Okay, finance and operations, Alex.
Yes, John covered lots of the points. The Wells Fargo meeting went very well. The only thing I need to add to that is, for those of you who are curious, we have a 60-40 equity fixed income ratio, which we've been under that policy since December of 2014. Iron Bank looks like it's going to be a good place for our funds to be, even though still 1/4% is not a whole lot of money. It's sure a lot more. 25 basis points is sure better than 2. We're still working on the budget, and that will be presented to the board in the near future. We're still tweaking it a little bit. The audit. Last year's audit is going to be discussed at, I think, on the Monday's meeting next Monday. The auditor is going to come and go through the audit with us. I've looked at the draft audit, and there were no real surprises that jumped out at me. John, if you have thoughts on that, I'd also appreciate that. The one thing that did disturb me a bit is Don O'Leary did a tour of the elementary school buildings with the selectmen and people from the different towns. And Don's been doing such a great job that a lot of the towns are like, well, why are we thinking about improving this stuff? Why don't we just continue to patch? And I think that's being very short-sighted. I think that we need to make some serious improvements on our facilities, and we need to convince the communities that this is the direction to go, and not a situation where Don's there putting out fires on a daily basis. That is my report.
Thank you, Alex. Labor negotiations, I have nothing to tell you new because we have completed negotiations with 3 of our 4 unions, and the next one isn't until the fall. So nothing new there. Strategic and long-range planning, Julie.
I'm going to wait and report as I'm on the agenda later.
Okay, that makes sense. I think that concludes committee meetings. So we'll now move on to new business and updates. The first item is the enrollment projections.
All right, and really what this presentation is intended to do, we talk so much about our tuition in and agri-science and how do these decisions get made. So I wanted to give a little bit of a backdrop just so you can see how we calculate the numbers, what it looks like, and give you a preview of what we think are coming attractions for next year. So if you will indulge me, I will share my screen with you all. All right. So when we are looking at our enrollment factors, and we always start with what is our base, meaning the residents of Roxbury, Bridgewater, and Washington. And from there, we take a look, and then we look at opportunities we have to open up additional seats, where our enrollments are high, where do we have to control, because it's not equal across the district for the availability that we have at the different grade levels. We also need to take a look in these past few years of the instability of our residents. We recognize we did have a number of families who came to us because of the disruption that happened in New York City schools. They came here, and now our hope is that they've fallen in love with us and want to stay put. And that way they do become our residents of Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington. But it is one that we constantly watch for as we're waiting for the plateau with our numbers. We have to factor in how many Sherman students that we're going to get within our 9th grade class. We recognize that reach. Next year, we will be offering 3 full day options. And when we say full day, it means that we're going to go till 2 o'clock for all 3 of our classes. Currently, we have 1 class that only went till 12 o'clock. And we had a number of families who weren't able to get into that 2 o'clock slot. And by expanding it, we will invite more opportunities for our families to have some of those preschool options. Now, we recognize, and if those who haven't known, Rumsey has just opened up a preschool program for next year. We're not quite certain what that's going to do with our reach enrollment, but it is something that, again, as we are watching some of the variables play out, these are things that we're considering when we're looking at opportunities that are available to people within our district. Obviously, you know, agri-science is one of our big drivers to our enrollment up at the high school. And when we are sending out acceptance letters, it's recognizing that we can't overload the system with students outside. So yes, we have some contracts with our different sending schools. We have schools who want to expand on their contracts. And it's a question of, we want to make certain we're growing in a calculated way. So we're also not overwhelming the core, meaning that I can't start having algebra classes with 25 to 30 students sitting in those classes. So we always look at what is the absorption rate within agri-science. We also have to look at what is the absorption rate within the content areas of Chappaqua. And obviously course offerings and class size. And we always know that we want to provide our students with lots of opportunities. And one of the things that our families have come to value and have expressed is they appreciate the small class sizes and the staff to student ratio. So we're not looking to overgrow ourselves. So we get really excited when we see, you know, last year we had 240 applications to Region 12. I want to talk about some of the things that limit our ability to just accept. So when we're looking at some of these challenges, so tuition in, we find that the majority of students who are applying for tuition in are applying at kindergarten, 6th grade, and 9th grade. And that makes a lot of sense. Those are the transitional years. Those are the years where, you know, kindergarten, they're starting their elementary program. You want to get them into the district. You want to make certain they can make those friends. In middle school, they may have friends going off other places. So it's a good time to explore, to build that foundation for middle school. And then obviously with their high school career in front of them, starting at 9th grade. We have, in order to make certain that we are giving students a continuous education. Students who have tuitioned in the past do get preference to new applicants when we're going through the application process. So once they come over to Region 12, we do make all attempts to make certain that they can remain with us, given that we have the resources available to offer them the following year. If it looks like it's a precarious placement, meaning right now I have a split 1st grade at Washington Primary Schools. We have 2 sections of that. When we allowed for more students to come into those sections, our families were notified that there's not a promise that there's going to be 2 sections of 2nd grade the following year. So this way, if they didn't want to gamble with what that would look like in the long term, they had the opportunity to not accept our offer to tuition in. So we don't do false advertising. We want people to make the decision with their eyes wide open on opportunities that we have and where opportunities may not be as stable as some families would feel good about putting their children in this situation. With all of that said, we continue to see an increase with our tuition in. We have capped our middle school enrollment at 55 students per grade level. And the reason that we do 55 is that way we can absorb the agri-science students and Sherman students when they become freshmen at high school. So we're right now factoring an estimate of 100 freshmen next year. So a reminder that last year I graduated 54 students from Chippewa, but we welcomed 106 freshmen. And so we need to make certain that we're constantly watching for how does that translate as they go up through the years. So this year, we have our first cohort of agri-science students are juniors this year. They will be seniors next year. And I can tell you that we're looking at a very high AP bio enrollment, which makes a lot of sense as our agri-science students become seniors wanting to take advantage of college opportunities in bio, given that they were part of the agri-science program throughout this process. So it's us absorbing and changing and making certain that we are not overtaxing the system. Our Sherman student enrollment continues to increase. This year, we are looking at 15 Sherman students coming to Chippewa. And so whereas in the past, we were averaging between 4 and on a good year, 9 Sherman students, we are way overachieving. And I'm very proud to say it is because good news travels fast. And I can tell you that families have appreciated the efforts that Chippewa has taken in order to accommodate and support Sherman students and make them truly feel like Spartans, even as much as our Chippewa administration driving out to Sherman to make certain that lawn signs for their graduates were right there the way that we do for our students within Roxbury, Bridgewater, and Washington. So again, the more that we make people feel like a sense of belonging, a sense of welcome, I think they're going to continue to come. So we do want to make certain that we're holding for that. And we know that our agri-science students, we just started taking Bethel last year. And so now we have 7 sending towns. And we have one of our sending towns right now who is asked to increase their seat allotment by 8 seats, which is wonderful. It's great for our business model for agri-science, but it's also taking a look at how do we want to grow our system? And I think for a long time, we had right-sized to adjust to be a smaller system. But as we expand, so do the needs, and so do some of the resource needs that we are going to have to be seeking to have in our schools. So as we continue to control, there are things that do fall beyond our purview. So when we are looking at, sorry, I am not clicking, hang on one quick second, there it is. So just as so what am I predicting for next year? And I want to show you how I work with this calculation. So if you notice, I grab and highlight one year, and if you can see how it shifts down for most of them. So whereas in kindergarten, which is 0, we had 47. So first grade, we have 47. We figure that's going to maintain, it may be a +1, -1, we expect. And you'll see that held constant in our grades that do not have large demand. But then you see our 37 in 5th grade go up to 50 in 6th grade. Because I have great confidence, we're going to have 13 of those applicants who will become tuition in. You'll see, 56 stays 56 when they get to 7th grade, 8th grade, we're holding constant. But then you see how our 53 8th graders are going to become 100 freshmen. We sent out, and I'm not going to give the spoiler, I'll give the spoiler alert on Teresa and Peter Lawler's presentation, but 46 acceptance letters from outside of our district. And those are the people who qualified and met our rigorous standards to be part of the agri-science program. But as you can see how things are shifting, and we have 72 in 11th grade, that is our first cohort of agri-science students. So we're expecting all 72 for their senior year. But as you can see, we graduate 64. So right now, if projections hold, we will be up 45 students next year. And I wanted you to see how we hold constant and what that looks like. So with that said, this is more of a showcasing strategies and how do we make some of these decisions going into tuition in, how do we hold things constant, and how are we making certain we're not burdening the system. But at some point, we are going to need to grow, and we're going to be needing to look at some of the FTEs and how are we making certain we can absorb for some of these opportunities that exist out there. So that said, are there any questions? And again, these are not true numbers, but it is taking what we have seen happen over the past 3 years and applying that to the numbers I have today.
Okay.
This is slightly off topic. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
There's on Thursday at 6 o'clock, you're having a walkthrough for parents.
Mhm.
And is the board been invited to that?
The board was welcome to. We will not put you all in the same group, so it does not constitute a meeting I have to post. But
'Cause I signed
it
up
is
for
one.
it.
Perfect. That's
Okay.
exactly what the opportunity is for those who want to see. It's
I haven't seen it in so long. I'm homesick.
I love it. And that is led by our students. So you will get the real honest at that time.
Look forward to it.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here. I apologize.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Greg.
Yeah, I lost the picture for a while, so I'm hope I'm back to you here. All right, so that's it on enrollment projections. If there are no other questions, we'll move on to ag science application numbers and processes. This is Dr. DeBrito and Mr. Lawler.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I just want to share that my role in this process was really to support the teachers, to have them involved as much as possible, to work with Mrs. Haverly and Mr. Boucher. And we've had a very successful recruitment and acceptance letter mailings. And actually, Mr. Lawler is going to share all those details, and just want to thank the whole team for all their efforts. Mr. Lawler.
Thank you, Dr. DeBrito. So we've put together a quick presentation for the board tonight, going over again our recruitment process and showcasing our numbers of accepted students for this year. So getting into it, this is just a recap from our last presentation, where we did this year, as previous years due to COVID, presented to 8th grade students in all 7 of our sending towns. These were, again, virtual presentations to the 8th graders based on our COVID protocols, but we did manage to incorporate teachers of the program, some of our students in our program, and Mr. Boucher was a large component of setting these up. And this year we did update our promotional video to include our newest teacher, Ms. Berry, to make sure that the entire ag staff was represented in that. In addition to our sending districts, there were in-person presentations to our Chippewa students in 8th grade. The letters notifying about open houses and the application process were sent to our sending districts to get out to their students. And we did hold an open house and an 8th grade high school presentation, both in November and December, that potential applicants were invited to attend, which had great success. And throughout the entire process, we managed to remain having open lines of communication. So any of the families that had any questions along the line were able to communicate with teachers, Mr. Boucher and Ms. Haverly, to get their questions answered. So our process this year, each and every single one of our applicants was personally interviewed with a member of the department, Dr. DeBrito, and some counseling representation. And every application was thoroughly vetted by a 7-member committee, again, of our administrators, counseling, and agri-science department. In much like years past, our rubric covered all aspects of the application listed there on that first bullet, and every committee member scored all of our applications. This year, we did look at each applicant in a holistic view. So not only how well did they score on the application, but we really took an approach of how well would they fit into our Chapag culture, as well as how well will our program be able to support their hopes and dreams. Ultimately, each student that met our criteria was ranked per district. And then Superintendent Bennett helped us out by reaching out to each sending district to confirm the number of seats per town. In the end of all of that, we do want to share with you, currently we have 112 students in our program as of this year. As you can see here, they are broken down by our sending towns, Region 12, and a few other outliers, as well as our current grade levels. So as Ms. Bennett has shared earlier, we do have a few seniors in our junior level curriculum this year, but next year will be our first year of having a full senior class. So from the 112 students we currently serve, this year we did receive 81 applications in total from all of our sending towns, as well as within our own district here at Chapag. Again, broken down by sending town. And from our 81 applications, as Ms. Bennett has already kind of alluded to, we have sent out 46 acceptance letters to students outside of our district that have met our criteria for our program. And including our current Chapag students, there have been 68 acceptances provided to the students and families. So we are very excited about the potential growth that we are looking for next year's cohort. What's coming up next is that all of the acceptance and wait letters were sent out to families already and also sent to the school districts. We are going to be holding a virtual acceptance presentation for students and families on March 10th in order to make sure that they fully understand the program and answer any additional questions they may have before formally accepting their spot to join our department. And on March 18th will be the deadline for our students to accept and us to be able to handle the wait list. So we should have a full understanding of which students plan on attending our program next year. At that point, a follow-up letter will be sent to all of the families that accept their position so that they can schedule a time with our Chapag counseling department for planning their freshman schedules and classes. And we are also planning an ag fair event in May, where we will invite all the students and families and open it up to the community as well to showcase what our program has been able to achieve the last 3 years. So thank you all so much for continuing to support our program. And please let us know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions? All right. We shall move on to the long-range plan update and process.
I think Lisa has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa, I missed you there.
That's okay. I was curious, there were 2 students from Woodbury on the list of students attending. I'm just curious where those 2 come from, since Woodbury has their agri-science program.
Yep, so we've had people who have sought special permission from Nanawag superintendent in order to attend our school. So we have those two, but they did receive the permission from their superintendent and so.
Are they new students or are they students that are already here?
They were students who had tuitioned in the past.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
It should be noted that Woodbury is not paying us for that, so there still is a cost to them to tuition in. So they take on that themselves, but that is
Okay.
their choice to attend Chappaq.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Julie?
Okay, so the Long Range Planning Committee met with Richard Lemons on February 14th, and this was after the January 30th community conversations. And I think what we wanted to share with the board was really the meat of that presentation. And I'm hoping Megan can pull that up. In the meantime, I just want to say that I did get to go to the Sacred Cow over the weekend that Chappaq offered with Rachel and the agri-science team, and it was an outstanding 90-minute documentary. So really, really good. I don't know if anyone can see it anywhere else, but it was quite outstanding.
The film they can access, it is through, if you actually Google Sacred Cow, you'll be able to access the DVD, or they do a screening if you would like to see that. All
Yeah,
right,
it's worth your time.
excellent. And I'm going to share my screen, Julie, so just let me know when you want me to advance.
Okay,
and we'll-
okay, and please, anyone else on the committee, please pop in. I don't want to spend a ton of time on these, just going through them quickly, but it was definitely worth the time to make a few highlights here. So for those who don't know, there was approximately 60 people who participated in the community conversations, and Richard and his team did all of their analysis, and this is really what they came back at as the highlights and what they synthesized and so forth. So the big picture, what I found very interesting, and you can see that these comments are all quite positive. The quality school district, comments about the superintendent being very visible, involved, and on agri-science. And what I found interesting was he said that in most schools, when you do the big picture, a problem emerges. There's sort of something that's sort of an overwhelming thing that needs to be addressed. And with Region 12, that was not the case. So I felt very good about that. So this was his overall comment. On academics specifically, there really wasn't anything overwhelmingly negative. There was a couple outliers there, but overall excellent, and people just saying that the more academics, the better, bring in different programs and so forth. But overall, academics are seen as very good in Region 12. Well-rounded education. What I gleaned from this was that people felt that we had a variety of programs and that we weren't just teaching to the test. People feel that our students are being taught in a creative way. They're getting a lot of exposure to things like music in the theater, and a very balanced curriculum. So this again was a highlight of what we learned. Teachers, probably not a surprise if you were in these sessions. I think every group talked about the quality of our teaching. So without exception, I think this was one of our very strong points as our teaching staff. Programming, I was surprised by this. I'm not sure about anyone else, but just because we're such a small district, people really felt that we were able to offer a good variety of programs. And I thought that was excellent. I was surprised by that. And again, agri-science came out as the #1 asset, as the most important resource as far as programming goes. School size and classroom size. Again, very complimentary. Oops, there we are. Thank you. Very complimentary and appreciating that small is good. Many comments about the personalization and individualized attention to each student. And they liked the small student teacher ratio. They felt it built strong relationships and also that it helped students feel safe. So that there was mostly all very positive comments about school size and classroom size. Diversity was perhaps a surprise, but many people brought up this issue of diversity. And this would be considered, I think, from all of the comments, an opportunity for Region 12. Something that many people in the community felt that we could do better. And I think there's a lot of different ways to go out that, and people's comments were very diverse, from our kids being too sheltered to, need to work on understanding, other genders, all of that. So I think that was something that we uncovered that looks like an opportunity where we could improve. Parent and community partnership, as a rule, I'd say is mixed. As far as some parents feel that they're very well informed, that it's a strong partnership, and some felt that there needed to be a stronger relationship. So communication seemed to be an issue again, where in some ways it seems to be very strong and others felt it wasn't so strong. And this specific reference to a registration, I think that was sort of a one-off that's been addressed. But in general, this was something again where some felt strong, some felt room for improvement. Moving forward, and this really centered around our enrollment and our facilities and so forth. And I think part of what we learned here is low enrollment maybe isn't as big of an issue as it once was. And I think that was apparent from the presentation we just received. But there was a bit of debate as to how to build up Region 12, how to build up our enrollment. So that's something that I think was, again, something we can work on. And we talked about marketing strategies and different people weighed in on that. So that's something, again, that we would want to give some attention to. And more balanced career development. And for those of you like me who are a Chappaq graduate, this was something we talked about way back in the 80s, that there was always this sort of comment about, okay, you do a lot for college prep, but you don't do enough for the people who may not want to go to college. And some similar comments came out on that. So talking about other career paths and other pathways for non-college students was something that came up quite a bit. So what we did at the end, so this is one intake point of data. This certainly isn't by any means all of the data we're going to collect. And the next step is to do a survey. And so the long range planning committee had an opportunity to suggest to Richard areas where we thought we should ask more questions and get more input. So that list that you see on that last slide really was all of our input to that process and what we'd like to learn more about. And he suggested that 400 survey responses would be a very strong return. So we're hoping to get, 400 more opinions via a written survey. And this again would go to teachers, community, some students, not young students, but older students and so forth. So that's a very brief overview of what we gleaned from those community conversations. And we still have a lot more data to get, but we wanted to share what we had so far. Anyone else on the committee want to comment or weigh in? or ask questions?
I was just going to chime in to say, so everything that was heard is going to lead us to our next set of questions. So really, as we continue to drill down, I think what we really want to have happen is that we're not just going through this exercise. This is to be responsive to our community. This is trying to figure out what do we need to get better at. So sometimes the trickiness in the celebration of we're doing everything great is, well, what do we need to get better at, and how does that work? And so in conversations with Richard and the partners, trying to do some things that people are putting rating importance, like how much is academics important, sports, drama versus the arts, and trying to get people to weigh out so we also can really focus and hone in. Because I think, of course, the answer is we want all of that, yes, but how do we do it well, and what does that look like? Because we can overwhelm people with opportunities and not get good at it. And, Jen, I have you in the back of my ear thinking, but, how do we make certain we make those programs better rather than just offering more? And I think this is where some of that conversation comes, but that's going to come with feedback from our community.
Yeah, and I think what I thought was, of course, great is that from the very first glimpse, it doesn't seem like we have huge systemic problems, but we certainly have opportunities for growth and improvement. And I think that's the path we're obviously taking. John?
I thought it was pretty beneficial. However, I would have liked to see a more diverse group, in that there were no parents in our group, there were no students in our group, and a lot of like-minded 65 plusers. So if we do it again, maybe we can get a little bit more mix in the groups. On a side note, there was a minority student from Yale, a Black girl, and she was very surprised at our interest concerning inclusion and diversity. She was really again, she was from an inner city. I think she came from New York City, but obviously she lives in New Haven now. But she was really surprised that, given our sheltered, our white world here, that we were interested in getting more diversity into this program.
Yeah, John, I'm not sure why the groups were separated the way they were, but I know community members were sort of together and staff and so forth. And I'm assuming there was a good logical reason to do it that way. And so that's why, the groups weren't mixed up. They were purposefully done in those sorts of categories.
Yeah, Mary.
Jane and Alec and I were in the same group. The first question that was asked is, what do you feel that this school system does well? Not one of the people had something good to say at all. All they did was launch into your naysayer group, the people that said we need more reading, writing, and arithmetic. And one of them seemed to have an axe to grind. One lady, she lived in New York. She's lived here for 3 years. Her children went to private school in New York. And she wanted to know everything about, where are your statistics? Where is this? She had nothing good to say. She just had all negative to say. And all your outlying information all came from our group. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we had heard sort of about that, and yeah, those were outliers, and it is what it is.
They were very rude to Megan too. I just kind of remained with my mouth open, and Jane and I were like, what? At the end of it, we just could not believe our ears and some of the things we heard. But I wanted you to know that was from that little group, and they really didn't have anything positive to say about anything. And I was sorry to hear that, but I was like, there was nothing that you could say that was positive, really? So, but I just wanted you to note that was our little group, and Megan was probably thrilled with them too.
If I
Thanks,
can
Mary.
add to that, I was in that group also. I got the impression that not only were they saying they wanted more reading, writing, and arithmetic, but they wanted less of the social parts of what the school does. They wanted less, I don't know quite how to phrase this, but they wanted less of the, feel good about each other business. They didn't want the fluff. They wanted the guts. They wanted reading, writing, arithmetic, and school stay out of everything else.
Alex, can I ask you
Yeah.
a question? Were there any
Yeah.
parents in your group?
I can't remember. I don't think any current parents.
I was gonna
May
say
have
they
been
was
One
There
was
was one former, there was
one form.
a farm family who was there, and they had sort of also were negative. They felt the quality of the student, because they claim they hire a lot of them, had gone down in the last few years. But there was sort of a negative vibe about the whole group. So, I would have been surprised if somebody, well, there was one or two women that were very positive on the school, but they were sort of drowned out.
So had any of these people actually been in the school or gone or taken much of a look at the school, or are they just not? Did you get the impression they haven't been there in years and they don't really know much about it? It seems like a weird thing that you would say, we don't want you to learn anything new. We just want you to go back to basics. Because that would make you, I would guess that would make our students incredibly uncompetitive in the world structure. I mean, if you're not really if you're going back to what people learned 100 years ago, that's fine if you plan to live in the early part of the 20th century. But if you want to live in the 21st century, I don't get that at all. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that represents. I really wish I could have engaged with them. I would have asked them
I think
that
there was
question.
a definite prejudice. Not to get too controversial, I think what they wanted is they wanted to make sure that we were not critical race theory-ish. They wanted us to be math-ish.
Yeah, that would put them in a distinct American minority, since 70% of the people in the United States believe we should be studying critical race theory in our schools, elementary through high school, even though that almost no one, I don't think any schools really study critical race theory. That's a college or law school construct. But it was a recent poll. 70% of Americans think that's what they should be teaching. They should be teaching about race. They should be teaching about the way in which we've kind of failed people on that basis, and some of the difficulties. So I honestly don't know where that sentiment is coming from, but it seems to be about a 30% minority. Mary.
Let me tell you something about the people that were the farm people that Alex was talking about. I've known them for years and years and years. And I have to say, they've always been negative about everything. And I was surprised that they still felt that way, being that we have the agri-science program. The other two, I think it was a bit political what they were trying to push. And I just was left with a very bad taste in my mouth about that whole session. I had wished that I was in on a different one, because I really didn't feel like it was my place to really talk too much, mostly to listen. But at one point I had to say, you're dead wrong. one lady because she was just making all these statements that didn't apply at all. And it was a bit crazy. And Jane and I and Alex probably looked at each other many times and went, what?
Well, it seems
Fascinating.
overall that this was definitely a one-off situation, so that's the good news.
Yeah, you put us all in the same room, eh?
That was coincidence, I'm sure, but
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments? Thank you very much, Julie. We'll look forward to the next session.
okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to action items now. To consider and if appropriate, approve disposal of Region 12 property as presented. I don't know if anybody got a chance to see that property list because unfortunately it was sent as a locked Google document for reasons that quite escape all of us. But Megan did manage to get it released. But that didn't occur until probably an hour before the meeting, if then. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but I had a couple of questions about the list. I see 3 cellos on that list. Is there a reason why we are disposing of these? Are they vandalized, destroyed?
Destroyed.
Or have we given up teaching the cello?
We have not given up teaching the cello. It's the condition of the instruments. They are beyond repair.
Okay.
And it is.
What about some of these other musical instruments? I see drums on there.
Mhm.
Are they also beyond repair?
It is one in which, as you and I have discussed, there seems to be this refuge in the back area of the music room that was just, instruments were stored there and not stored properly. And so this is one in which improving practices, and sadly has happened too late for some of our instruments.
I think we ought to look into this a little bit. It's, I hate to tell you, but generally musical instruments don't, in 10, 20, 30 years, they usually don't fall apart unless they're electronic. By and large, things like stringed instruments and percussion instruments can last virtually forever. I mean, there are people playing cellos that were built in the 1600s. And so I recognize we didn't buy any of those excellent instruments, but nonetheless, this is troublesome to me that we're seeing instruments be destroyed. These instruments, I know the cellos in particular, were bought primarily with funds that a lot of parents worked very hard to raise through Chippewa Friends of Music in order to see that those instruments were hired. And we had a string program here. And I think if they're not being properly cared for, it could very well be that there's no good place to store them. I've been back in that music area and it's a nightmare. That area is disorganized. There's stuff thrown in rooms. Something's got to give over there. We need to take a look at that in a more, I don't know whether Don Shells needs to take a look at this in a more thorough way, but I do believe that that there's some serious disorganization back there. It needs to be addressed.
I agree. And I can say that, this is part of our efforts, because at some point we have become pack rats. And when you become a pack rat, you're not caring for how storage is happening. And I think as we are now trying to make certain that we are having better storage practices, getting better, it's taken me a little while, and the impetus was that planetarium to make certain that wasn't just a storage facility, but really we're utilizing things for what they are. And this is why now twice a year, if you've seen, we are trying to cycle our purge of equipment and making certain that we maintain what we have in better fashions.
Well, I do know that stringed instruments in particular should either be in a storage area designed for them, or they should be in a hard shell case. They should not be in soft shell cases left on the floor or against a wall or stuck in a corner. That's a wrong treatment of them. And I don't know, do we not employ any people who are actually understand the instruments that they're teaching? I don't understand how this happens. This is just an awful situation. I think people need to stand up and take responsibility for this, or I will organize a walk through that site where we will make some hard decisions. As a musician, it really sickens me to see this kind of poor treatment by whether that be by students or whether it be by neglect of the school system. I mean, I'm a little bit worried because, a few years ago we acquired $80,000 worth of pianos, and I really don't want to see them end up in the same place for lack of care. And so I think we need to do more than talk about this. I would like to have a detailed report within 30 days as to what the situation is and what's being done to fix it. Because what's going to happen is we're going to get in the summer and then we're going to forget about it. And next fall we'll be sitting there not able to teach a given instrument because it doesn't exist anymore. It's been destroyed. So I think I need a report in 30 days. The board needs a report as to what's being done to solve this problem.
Greg?
Yeah, Alex.
I think there are two issues here. One is what we're going to do in the future. But as far as this list is concerned, I'm sure it's been vetted by the people who are responsible for vetting it. And
No, I'm sure it is. I think they should be disposed of. I don't disagree.
yeah, I don't think the board should try to micromanage on this. I think what we do is we do make sure that this practice stops. At the same time, I don't think we should be going and looking at each of the three cellos and trying to decide, oh yeah, this one can be saved, this one can't. That's really not our job.
Well, Alex, I disagree. It's our job when the school administration has dropped the ball completely. This is not the first conversation I've had about this. This is at least the fourth. And I believe the ball has been seriously dropped. And I think it's about time that we got a report back to us to what's being done about this, because this is not a situation in which we've got property that needs to be disposed of. But the fact that there are this many musical instruments being disposed of at this time because they are beyond repair tells me there's a bigger problem. And I really don't want to be spending the taxpayers' money to purchase musical instruments only to have them have to go out in a garbage can. And I think it's about time that we took some action on this. And I'm dissatisfied with the lack of a response. So I'm happy to move on to the item, which is, do we have a motion to dispose of the property on the list that's been presented?
Greg, before we dispose of it, could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
What are blue walls and what are 2 boxes of, what is it, documents or 2 boxes of paperwork?
So the blue walls are in one of the rooms that was in the music room. And obviously we focused a lot this time on music. And this is where, I know this is upsetting because especially I know, those who are musicians and to know that right now we're trying to clean up the area, which means that we're now trying to dispose of things that have gone into disrepair, so that way we can start organizing it. So blue walls are just that. It's some of the soundproofing in a room that's no longer being utilized. So trying to dispose of that. And you asked of old paperwork. It's old student work that just kept in a file. So it has nothing to do with anything that is personal information of our students or anything. Those go in a different capacity when I have to dispose of records, et cetera. This is just found boxes. But obviously, as we go through these lists, we want to make certain that we are accounting for anything that has been there and now we're purging.
So let's talk about the actual disposal. A lot of the electronics, the computers and stuff, they have to be separated. I'm not understanding where it all goes.
So what happens in like what we've done with our smart boards in the past, when they have lived out their life expectations for us, once they're no longer Region 12 Board of Education property, we give those over to a school in need. That possibility, if our instruments were in a better condition, but we're not up to our playing standards, it could have happened with our instruments as well. So when we dispose of it, it's saying that we're no longer in need of it. They've either become outdated. We've replaced them, with technology. We should be cycling technology pretty readily, which is why we have shifted over to a leasing rather than purchasing, because it's exactly as you said, we have to do a special disposal or we give it away to a school that may be in need.
Okay, any other questions? All right, have we had a motion to consider an appropriate dispose of the Region 12 property? Actually, what I want is a motion to dispose of the Region 12 property on the list.
I will move.
Is there a second?
I'll
Moved and
second.
seconded. Yeah, moved by Alex and say, okay, so it's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I have a, just something, I just did a quick Google search and there does seem to be an organization or several organizations that take instruments that are, I guess, broken down, they fix them and they do donate them to youth in need. So is that something that we can look into?
Happy to do that. Yes.
Yeah, it's a
And
great
I
idea.
can
Thank you,
forward-
Andrew.
There's a place called Hungry for Music, for all I know, it could be, out in California, I don't know yet, but I can do a couple searches and then just forward that.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much. If we can avoid building up our landfills and doing something really good with it, I would rather have that report to give to our board.
Okay, good idea. Okay, moved and seconded. Further discussion. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. All those abstaining, please raise your hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Next action item, to consider and if appropriate, approve revision to the 2022-2023 Board of Education meeting schedule. We had adopted this previously.
You did, yes, in a meeting in the fall. So the difference between the original one that was adopted and this one is the changing of the date of the organizational meeting. This was originally by my request, and we did survey the board and we had everyone who is available on the July 18th. However, the board reserves the right to maintain our current schedule if that is preferred.
And no other dates changed.
No other dates have changed. Everything else remains status quo.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the revised calendar?
So moved.
Okay, it's moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed, please raise your hand. I see none opposed. Anyone abstaining, please raise your hand. I see none abstaining. It's unanimously approved. All right, do I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the superintendent's mid-year evaluation?
So moved.
Okay, moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. All those abstaining. It's unanimous. We'll now go into executive session. I'm not anticipating any action after the executive session, so it'll just be executive session followed by adjournment. Okay. All of those who came to the meeting tonight, it's great to have you here. It's great to see you, Kim, again, because we see our Roxbury selectmen a lot here, so it's good to see you.
Thank you.